Is fandom a cult? The religious fervor fueling Star Wars, Marvel, and more. And I do believe that on the outset, you could make a fair argument that there's a lot of cult-like behavior in modern fandom, which is a lot more centralized than it ever was before, thanks to the internet and corporations that now own all of these properties. But at the same time, I never really hold it against the creators for selling off their... I wish they wouldn't. But I also get it, you know. You make this thing that resonates with people, and then you get your big payday. That's the way the world works.
I don't think so. I think I can hold it against a George Lucas for selling off his creation.
I mean, it's not like I was listening to a thing earlier. Like, he didn't even make most of the money off the movies. He made it off the toys. That's where the money comes. Like, he didn't sell off all the rights to the toy. I think he still has money invested in the toys because he knows that's where the bread is buttered. So
that's why Grogu has taken center stage.
Yeah, well, that's in the same, what was it, socks in Buzz Lightyear.
And socks in Buzz Lightyear.
It's literally designed as like to bait children into, look at this amazing toy.
Grogu still money that he earns, even though it's in his world, but it's a new character?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
He probably only has financial stake in the legacy characters.
I'm curious how that works.
So we'll start from the top here. It says, it felt like such a communal bonding experience, he recalls. They're talking about going to see The Force Awakens in the theaters.
Yeah.
He says, like you had a unique relationship with that piece of art because you experienced it first with such a dedicated group of people. It reminds me of worship services, to be honest. Being a fan means sharing a story or even a worldview with others. It means gathering people together to talk about the story, but some stories are so vital as to define entire civilizations, while others are trivial. If that's true, then then where does the Marvel Cinematic Universe fall? Or Star Wars, for that matter? Are super fans in Disney a controlled cult? Are they a Disney-controlled cult? I kind of think that it kind of is, at least the Disney part.
What I don't understand is why being a fan would mean that you share a worldview with other fans. It means that you share a fondness for
a story,
a certain piece of media, maybe. But why would that affect the rest of the way you view the world?
Maybe it does.
I don't think it does, at least not for, people who casually like Star Wars.
Casually, yes, but I bet you there's absolutely similarities between those who fall at those more extreme ends of the spectrum.
Disney Star Wars has definitely courted a smaller, more cult-like fan base than Star Wars as a whole.
Yeah.
It's less cross-generational, and a lot more of it is merchandise.
Wine moms.
And
wine moms.
Repetitive. I mean... Even
Disney is wine mom, sorry.
Even the YouTuber we were listening to earlier said, even if it's bad Star Wars, I still will like it.
Do you want to watch
it's like, can anything fall out of the bounds of what you will be loyal to? Like, it's... We should react to that clip.
Okay, this is an old... Do you want to describe the clip?
Sure. There's this YouTuber who mainly does reaction content. He's a big Star Wars fan, especially Disney Star Wars. His name is Eric Butts. You heard that right. And
brother to Seymour.
This clip from, I believe, 2018 went viral of him reacting to The Rise of Skywalker.
The trailer for
We can't show the whole thing because of copyright issues for the music, but we're going to show his reaction after the trailer is ended. I highly recommend you watch the whole video at some point, though.
Yes. Oh my God. How do they make this more and more epic every time? How do they make this more and more epic every time?
To me...
So he is literally bursting into tears over a simple trailer.
To be fair, trailers are designed to be emotionally manipulative. They are. The music...
They're not manipulative.
They
Yes,
absolutely
they
are.
are.
They use emotional, scores to
And they're
be
cut together,
emotionally evocative.
They're cut together in ways it's like the best
But
of everything.
That doesn't mean it's manipulative. It's literally that's like saying all advertisement is manipulation. It's just selling something.
It is all manipulative. First of all, that guy, do you believe that guy? Do you think that's real?
I think he plays up emotions for his YouTube content for sure.
Like he had a tissue
but
ready to go.
I also think that
reaction channels...
I also think that
lean
it
into
comes
it.
from a
There's nothing wrong with
genuine
that.
place
Yes,
in
there is.
him because there are a lot of people who feel that strongly about
Yeah.
Disney Star Wars, as puzzling
I get
as that
that.
is
Well, and it's the same
to
thing
us
with-
who couldn't care
It's
less.
the same with not couldn't care less. I care about what it means to the culture right now, and also this isn't just true of. It seems more of a Disney thing. Like I threw Warner Brothers in there earlier, but they can barely get their movies done without screwing everything up. And Disney seems to be a factory that just churns out product of less and less consequence every single day.
Yeah,
but the
well-
reactions remain
Yeah.
weirdly the same. Like they're reacting the same to Andor as
Yeah.
they were reacting to the rise. To the Force Awakens, which are two totally different times at two totally different stages of Disney Star Wars.
Because this seems to be an allegiance that is all consuming for his life and a lot of people's lives, not just people who put it on social media. Like he said that his wedding and his honeymoon are all going to be Star Wars themed. And his whole set is decked out with these Funko Pops and posters and all this merchandise everywhere. It's sort of like iconography and devotional sacramental items that religious people use, but there's a big difference when, I suppose, if it's cult-like, you're focusing on how it can insulate you from the rest of the world, whereas with Christianity, for example, there's an impetus to proselytize and to be very much part of the world, but not reflecting the same values as the rest of the world. Do you know what I mean?
Then perhaps it falls more into the case that they see it as a religion than as than we would see it as a cult. That they definitely expound upon their love for these franchises online, assuming they're not all dead internet bots.
Well, that guy's real. I think he's real. He looks real, and he's crying. And well, some bots cry, but I'm wondering at what point is he worshiping? When they say worship, and if you're looking at it like a cult or religion, do you think people like this are worshiping certain aspects of it, like one type of character that they're like, I want to live like this? And it's like their Jesus is Luke.
Well, it's almost like the content of what they're watching and celebrating is not as irrelevant as feeling like they belong to this community.
Yeah.
And I say it's insular because that's really the key that would make it a cult-like community rather than one that's like a mainstream religious community.
But like a religion too, there are people who probably are more devout in the Star Wars world than others, right? Like the old George Lucas is your Old Testament, the new Disney is the New Testament. And
but
there's some people
it's
who
seen
crossed
in
over.
this all or nothing way where
Yeah.
if you have one criticism
Thank you.
or one part of the universe that you dislike or don't accept, or one part of or like if you enjoy the prequels but you don't enjoy The Force Awakens, like
You're a heathen.
Yeah, you're completely cast out of the club. And then there are all of the consumer habits that are grouped in there that if you don't go to Disney and you're not dedicated to the whole narrative
There was
and
a
the whole
line-
lifestyle, then you're not part of
You're
their
not
group.
fully in it, yeah.
There
That's
was a line
weird.
in it about, it says Disney adults are using popular culture to fill the void that religion used to fill. And as far as I know, 80% of America still considers themselves religious.
I don't know. I never know how they get those numbers.
Yeah.
I'm
Like,
not sure, but didn't it say in this article that a growing percentage of the country is also considering itself spiritual but not religious?
I've seen that, yeah.
Yep.
I'm seeing 69%.
And definitely the group that would describe itself as none, like no religious affiliation, is growing. So that is a possibility. But I think more than religion even, it's pointing out that people
you.
don't have community based around anything. Like
Yeah.
hobbies
Well, the internet
are replaced by consumer habits.
The internet caused people to search for these communities outward towards things that they might have appreciated in their childhood, but there weren't a lot of people like them in their area that liked it, so they searched for like-minded people online. There's nothing wrong with that. They talk about Disney adults can make pilgrimage like a pilgrimage to Disneyland or to
Mecca.
Disney World.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's their own version of Mecca. Decorate their homes using the We Do Disney manifesto as the theme and participate in innumerate rituals. Disney cast members, the firm names for its employees, are even required to sit through a training class called Disney Traditions.
And that's a cult.
They have a quote from a former sci-fi superfan. I don't know exactly what that
What
means.
does that mean? I saw that. I like
I
that.
bet-
He says there's an insularity there where the in-group of established fans or followers are given a separate designation from people who casually engage with the given material.
Normie. That's what you call a normie.
Right.
In
I
a lot of
think-
cases, we would be considered normies, even with the podcast we host, because our interests are more spread out over a variety
Right.
of things rather than hyper-focused into one area.
He added you have to prove your credentials.
Name
they
3
make it a
songs.
lifestyle. They can't allow any criticism of their fandom or faith. So I think that's mainly what differentiates it from an ordinary religious affiliation, because, you know, for instance, in any Catholic church, I'm sure there are people all over that congregation that have deep disagreements about interpretations of scripture or of church teaching, and also that is completely allowed. There's no inquisition that is searching for people who don't ascribe to each and every rule, and it's sort of more inclusive and a working part of people's lives that exist in the world. It doesn't aim to insulate you socially from people who aren't part of that crowd.
I also find it interesting that they talk about the culture of the canon and like how they use canon now. It's not in the article, but my interpretation is that they use canon now in a lot of ways to smite fans who they might feel don't fit within the framework of their part of the fandom. Meaning, like if somebody criticizes a character and they change, like a big thing is to do race changes, gender swaps.
Not only
sexual
that,
swaps.
but like the mental gymnastics it takes to justify the discontinuity in the Kenobi series with the rest of Star Wars canon is outrageous. And people pointed out so many like knowledgeable people pointed out so many ways that it doesn't fit into the universe and it doesn't really matter. So the main difference between like the canon that is preserved from the Bible and the canon of the Star Wars universe and Star Wars Legends is that for this fandom, the lore keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more inclusive so that anything can fit into it and more money can be made. Whereas the canon of scripture has not gotten bigger. It's only changed when certain things have been excluded from it. And also you're not selling scripture to people. That's not a product.
They also made
Prosperity Church we talked about last time. There are people who
that's
are,
a certain style of preaching that you're selling, though.
It's a different interpretation of it.
Yeah.
There was also a really funny comment about like when they were talking about Disney and religion, about how Disney won't be getting tax breaks anytime recently, but they don't remember Reedy Creek and
they literally are getting tax breaks.
Allowed to run their own town themselves. So it's like there is a lot of kind of almost shocking.
And there was that whole scandal about their collusion with the Anaheim City Council.
Oh yeah, I mean it would have been funnier for them to not have a couple of like to not be playing dirty with like local government, like really, like you really don't think that a gazillion-dollar company isn't doing stuff like that. I also think that a lot of it feels like religious fervor when you do push back online on anything, and thank goodness I'm not one of these people that puts up with like that takes the time to read a bunch of comments, but or takes time to post a bunch of comments. But if you have critiques and then the pushback you get is almost insane, no matter what direction you go from both sides, because all sides have a zealotry to them when you get that deep into the lore. So
it almost reminds me of Scientology. At this point.
They reference that in here. They reference
L. Ron Hubbard.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
started out as sci-fi. He was an author.
Yep. And then they reference, but they also reference John Travolta, who they classify
in Battlefield Earth. We should do a review of that.
Battlefield Earth.
That'd be funny.
But they mention, but they say noted Scientologist, which is clearly supposed to, denote.
Yeah.
They also mentioned Heaven's Gate in here, which is such a. I mean, Mary would have loved that as like a flashback. Oh no, you like the early 2000s. You wouldn't have. 97's probably too far back for your peak interest.
Too far back.
I remember.
Big.
I remember when Heaven's Gate happened. I was young.
It's a terrifying image as
yeah.
a young person to see all those bodies.
It says also, like mainstream religion, these rituals are steeped deeply in capitalism.
Now, that sounds like a denunciation of capitalism, which I wouldn't totally get on board with. But it's undeniable that profit-driven mega corporations who acquire all of these different IPs are the driving force behind this.
It's also funny that they say for ye why a Star Wars fan who requested anonymity, like is he afraid of like pushback? I like it.
From the Disney fandom.
I wouldn't doubt it.
There's like a video of him with an obscured silhouette and his voice is distorted.
Yeah. That's the part of the reason people turn to fandoms in the first place. People don't have meaning in life and left religion as a whole due to capitalism crushing everything. So people need to resort to corporate media to fill their soul. So they left religion based on capitalism to join corporate capitalism. Okay. Okay. I don't get it.
I mean, really it comes down to the fact that people need to feel like a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And if you're not able to find that in a church community or in your school or in your local area or even in a workplace, then you're going to find it on the internet these days.
Do you feel like this speaks to a certain type of person who may not feel entirely comfortable wrapping themselves in actual contact with people in the real world? That it's easier to do this type of.
It could. But I mean, this existed before the internet.
And I guess it's not like they don't go to Comic-Con or they don't go to these cons and do these things. But it feels like there's something about the lore and the fantasy. Like maybe if we were getting like Marvel level religious films, there would be a weird comeback of like I remember there was a they tried to publish like a Jesus comic a couple of years ago and it got major pushback.
I would be extremely suspect.
Well,
of
they made
like
Jesus. If I remember correctly, they made Jesus like a superhero. Like he was like that's who he always was, and like.
Well, there are people who think that Superman and also Batman are like Christological characters.
There's a lot of articles written about Superman being a Jesus allegory.
Isn't Darth Vader kind of like Christ? Like in the movie, like he doesn't have a father.
Well, he doesn't have a redemption arc.
Well, he does. He does sort of. Doesn't he return to the light side when he doesn't kill Luke? Sorry, spoiler alerts. Yep. I've only seen Star Wars once, but they do give.
I'm
him
not sure if that would qualify, but even then, like Jesus didn't have a fall from grace.
Right. Right.
Says there's no way to be there's no one way to be a fan, so it's hard to answer the question of whether Star Wars fandom is basically a cult. But looking at the fan experience through a different lens may be the key to keeping your interest from veering into an unhealthy obsession. I think that's a fair thing to ask yourself. Like, am I getting overly invested in this one thing?
What would a Star Wars fan or a comic books fan do before the internet to have a sense of camaraderie with people who like the same thing as them?
Magic.
Yes. Local comic book store.
Yep.
Right. And then you would meet people and talk face to face and make connections.
Yep.
And you'd meet people that they know.
And maybe that's even healthier because then you're actually having real world experiences with people, which feels like you're actually connecting on a level that's deeper than that of just superficial internet connection.
And there's also some friction or resistance necessary to do that. You actually have to go out of your way to find people with similar interests. And people also who may disagree with you about your interests as well, but have the same enthusiasm for it.
The people that go, like the Disney super fans, the ones who go to Disney World several times. I mean, there's a whole industry of Disney influencers who make their living just Disney. Like Disney is maybe scarier, like it's becoming scarier to me than
Disney
Facebook.
Industrial Complex.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
thing.
DIC.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, and I wanted to also point out that there is sort of a false sense of competition between the different fandoms. Like, now that Disney has acquired Marvel, and now that Disney has acquired Star Wars, and people in these different camps feel that they're differentiated in some way, it's totally a fabricated sense of rivalry that they have between each other that both profit the mega corporation.
It's like when people argue about Android versus Apple, and I just giggle. I'm like, really? Like, what do you?
Right.
Okay, I'm not saying you don't have a right to love your phone, but why would you actually give a crap what somebody else's phone is? It's ridiculous.
I think a lot of the Disney types who are so overboard with it, they're just so like drugged on nostalgia.
That might be the biggest, like the Kool-Aid is actually the nostalgia.
It's not even that, because this guy that we showed, he's in his 30s, and he didn't grow up with the OG Star Wars.
To be fair,
necessarily.
That's not necessarily true. His parent, like he might have had a parent that loved that movie and played that for him all the time, and so it's connected to his childhood.
You have to be
but
from
there's
the time,
an
though.
obvious kind of divorce between the Disney Star Wars superfans and the original fan base for Star Wars.
I think what I was getting at
doesn't like what they're doing with it
is that people were introduced to these things in their childhood when you have that kind of unbridled love for something, and then it turns into their whole identity growing up. They never grow out of it. And I think it's okay to love something this much, or not, maybe not this much, but it's okay to love something, but it's not okay when it becomes your identity so much where you have to have these fallouts with people or the communities over the way it splits off. That to me is scary, and I get really scared when I see people online who are these Disney fanatics bringing their kids there, and because to me it looks like a grown child bringing their little child, and like, who's raising this person? It's just a child raising a child.
Well, we are in protracted adolescence for sure in this country. Is there anything you guys would consider yourself close? Like, what is the closest thing you would consider yourselves super fans of?
Kanye.
Oh, gosh.
Kanye, but I disagree with him all the time, and my life doesn't revolve around him. But like I'm fascinated with his art, but like he does a million things as a person. I'm just like, ugh. You know, like I can disagree with people on albums and stuff, but there are people in the Kanye, I think, audience who are the types who, like Star Wars, stop liking Kanye after a certain album run, right? Like the first 3 albums, kind of like the trilogy of Star Wars, and then after that it's like, no, I like a lot of his stuff all across the time. It's that and Mary Poppins.
Okay. Fair enough.
But I hate Mary Poppins too. You know, I'm Old Testament Poppins, not New Testament Poppins. But that's it. But I don't use that to like view the world, you know, through, and I don't like adhere to any law other than it reminds me that imagination is a beautiful thing, which is what the first Mary Poppins is about.
Mary?
For me, like, I'm trying to comb through, and I don't think there's anything with current day relevance and continued development that
I heard you only think about fashion
I'm
and death.
a super fan of.
Fashion and death.
That's amazing.
Wait, what?
Fashion and death.
Well, what about it?
You only think about fashion and death.
It's true.
Exactly.
That's cool.
I mean,
but you have a certain.
There's nothing I like that I can't criticize.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's crucial.
Yes, that you have to always remember that. It's weird when you can't criticize something, even religion, which is why I think we talked about before, like Flannery O'Connor, devout Catholic, she criticized people who she didn't think believing right. That's part of that. If you stop criticizing something, then you stop being an individual.
Is this because of the like? I mean, we're seeing this fall into the political lines as well, and this isn't a political show, but we're seeing the same thing fall into both. To both parties,
Right.
and
Yeah.
we're seeing it fall
It
into
is the same thing.
entertainment. I mean, another great example would be sports, but a lot of people have no problem considering criticizing their own team. They just don't like it when they lose to other teams, so it's not really the same thing.
Yeah, but
So.
people, there's a fervor for all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is weird when you do the whole wedding thing. Like you're gonna do like a whole New York Giants wedding thing.
And your honeymoon,
Yeah.
and then your baby shower,
it's
and your whole family
much.
is now
It's a bit much.
involved.
It's a bit
I mean,
much.
if he met her through Star Wars, like maybe he met her at a convention, so it played a big part.
That's
to
the only
both of
place
their-
you could meet a woman.
That's like I could see that being like if it's a shared experience for both of you, but if
Yeah.
just he loves it and she's just kind of going along to get
It's
along.
a burden.
that
Now,
seems weird.
your hesitance to make fun of Eric Butts
Yes.
is that he is sincere.
Yes.
And I agree. It seems that his expression is coming from a genuine place, and he is a sincere
We have
fan
such a
of
different
Star Wars.
view of that video.
But I'm not going to deny that he he overplays
He's
how
overselling
emotional he
But
is.
you believe the way he
I
feels
believe
about the
it
trailer is
does
sincere.
ultimately come from a genuine
Right.
place, like a genuine excitement. And that excitement is something I have contempt for. But my response
that.
is like, yes, he's sincere, and the people in Heaven's Gate were also sincere in
I don't
their
know enough
belief.
about this. I don't know enough about this
Cult
dude's life
belief.
to criticize
Right.
this.
I'm just saying
But let's do it anyway.
if you're in a cult, of course you're sincere about your allegiance to the cult. That doesn't make it less despicable.
See,
that doesn't make it something I can't criticize. That he's sincere.
When
in
I
it.
see him crying, so this is how old is that?
2018.
Okay, so it's fairly new. I don't know. I saw one Star Wars in the theater like in the last few years. Was that I think it was a one-off one they did. I forget what it was called, but it doesn't matter.
Rogue One.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
When I see this, I also feel like maybe deep down he knows it's not that good and he's overcompensating.
No, he totally knows
subconsciously.
that.
That was
because
the
Subconsciously.
first. That was
in
the
his
first,
reaction to the Andor trailer, he's like reflecting on the Rise of Skywalker, saying that there were a lot of things wrong with it, but he still loves it and he still thought it was so powerful and there were so many great things about it.
Right.
So it's immediately like anything he thought was wrong with it, he has to immediately qualify with, but I loved it so much.
Was in this time, I'm sure there was, but I have no idea. Was he reacting against a lot of negative comments that were already happening at the time?
I mean, he got a huge wave of hate for
I don't mean
that.
him. I mean like first Star Wars coming out where there are people already hating on the new Star Wars world, and he might have felt the need to really overcompensate to help
there
get
was
rid
a
of
lot
that.
of genuine excitement when The Force Awakens.
Yes, but
Okay.
there was also a lot of genuine criticism. And then when the other Disney films continued to be put out, like there was then that novelty wore off and more people dropped off
There was
from that
absolutely
camp.
There was absolutely more criticism as the movies came out and they proceeded to underwhelm.
And now that they're doing these series,
Yeah, they're not
and
even putting it on the big screen
oversaturating
anymore.
the market
Yeah.
on Disney Plus. There's a continually fragmenting and shrinking group of people who are just fanatically obsessed.
Right. It's like all the different denominations of Catholicism or Christianity, Episcopalians and Protestants, and
There are so many different sects that you cannot even count them.
bizarre. It's bizarre. The internet is like a cathedral for all this stuff, and then there's little cathedrals, and it's just going to keep happening until it doesn't mean anything to anyone. Because I haven't watched any of the new Star Wars stuff, but my son really likes the songs from The Mandalorian. Have you heard? They're really good. They're by the guy who.
I noticed that the score done in the trailer for Mandalorian Season 3 was really good.
It's the guy who does all the music for Childish Gambino, the Donald Glover stuff.
Oh, interesting.
I forget his name, but it's really good. So we roll around listening to
I
that all
heard
the time.
that score in the Andor trailer was reminiscent of Squid Games.
I never saw Squid Games. I don't know who did the Squid Game score, but the music's cool. Like I understand. How do you guys feel about the Harry Potter fandom? Like there's an extremist.
That might even be worse.
Is it?
It's
It's a contained.
At least
it's a
as far
contained
as-
one.
as
at
far
least.
as, like,
Oh, no, it's
A
not.
lot
It's not
more
anymore.
social messaging is extracted from Harry Potter for some reason. I don't know why.
Also, they're a fandom at war because they have to like the most fervent believers are also going to be the ones who take great issue with J.K. Rowling now.
Like, imagine if a bunch of people started, a dialogue about how George Lucas is a contemptible human being.
Yeah. There's like
Online.
How
whole
have they not
things.
done that yet?
There's like whole things that they talk
Probably
about.
because he's stayed silent strategically
True.
throughout the years.
There's whole things where they talk about how they have to find ways to like get the products without giving her money because they can't reconcile the fact that they still love and the product means so much to them. And
Like,
I
if
do-
she sold completely the rights to Harry Potter, they would be all in.
Yes.
But because she still makes money off of new stuff,
that might even
they're-
be a smaller. I mean, I do believe that most people don't pay attention to what J.K.
Most people
Rowling
don't even
is
know.
saying, what she's saying. But
Yeah.
the people that are the biggest diehards are the ones that would have
Right.
come to learn that stuff because they would follow her on Twitter and understand and I guarantee you they all kind of fall in line with the same belief system.
It's the same belief system that tells you can't go buy Chick-fil-A because some of their founders have beliefs that you disagree with.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that is, I think, the depths of derangement.
She did feed into that type of mentality early on by the
and now
revisionist history
it's
she
her
created.
fault.
It is
Oh yeah, she
a
courted
lot of her fault.
She courted the audience that she
Yeah.
got. But
Yeah.
I laugh with hers because they really do. They use Harry Potter as an analog, as like an example for everything. Like it informs every aspect
Because
of
there's
their
no
life.
other framework for good and evil anymore than fictional universes.
But that again is also based kind of off of the Bible, and she said it. Like I think she's Christian.
Any
She
human
calls herself
story
Christian.
is ultimately going to be traced back.
Yeah, but
to
it has like
the biblical
the
story.
the parents not being there, and the dying and resurrecting. Like there are aspects of it that are very like
Sure,
right
but
back to it.
you can argue the same about anything. You can argue the same about Star Wars. You can argue the same about the MCU, about
Yeah.
DC. Like
Yeah.
that's just the fact that people love redemption stories.
And it's foundational
Yeah.
storytelling that
Yep.
goes back to larger objectives.
I wonder if at some point these people
like it was
will-
brought up in this article, Tony Stark
right.
going from the loner playboy to someone who fights for the common good.
Right.
That's going to be repeated over and over and
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.